I believe that in several of my videos, I've talked to you all about, the importance of aftercare of an affair, that counseling was mandatory if you were going to try and actually salvage the relationship. And I believe I also told you that only that 2/3 of all couples who go through an affair stay together. But what about that other third? What happens to them? Why don't they make it? Well, part of the reason that couples don't make it long-term after an affair is because there's grief work. And if they don't do the grief work, or they get stuck in one of the stages of grief, such as denial, then what happens is the marriage continues on and they fight emotionally hard to keep everything suppressed down so that they don't have to face it. What I'm going to go through today are the 5 stages of grief. Just as Kubler-Ross set them out many years ago, there are 5 concrete stages. What's important to remember is not everyone goes through these all at once. You do not go through them in order, and you can have what we call complicated grief, where you get stuck in one, which is what I was alluding to, and then you don't move on past that. If you don't move on past that, then depending where the marriage is, it forces you to kind of continue that. So as I mentioned, if you're in a denial stage, you may continue the marriage. You may be in that 2/3 that survived after an affair, but that doesn't mean it's healthy, and it doesn't mean that you have worked through the stages of grief. Of course, the first of these stages is denial. Denial is when you try to logically look at it. You start going through, okay, well, it was a one-time thing, and, logically, these kinds of things happen. We just had a baby, and maybe I wasn't giving him enough. Or maybe in his case, he says I was out of town and therefore I wasn't home for my wife, and that's why she strayed. Whatever it is, denial is telling yourself that whatever happened won't happen again, and you make an excuse for it. Secondly, anger. The anger stage can last for a long time, and the couple that stays together has to go through this. This is where you just feel such raw anger, disgust, and that anger isn't only at your partner or the other person. It's at you. You internalize it. Why was I doing these things? Why wasn't I paying more attention? Could I have been a better, partner? What was I doing wrong? So you're angry at the person that hurt you. You're angry at the person they hurt you with. You're angry at yourself. And that manifests by just being irritable, angry, terse. You're disgusted. You don't want anything to do with the person. You're resentful. This is possible to work through, but it is a real stage. And when you see it after an affair, rather than it scaring you, I want you to understand it. Not only you, but the cheating partner. Thirdly, it's bargaining. Bargaining is when you kind of make deals like, okay, maybe it was this other person who seduced my partner, or this other person has moved now, so it'll never happen again, or we can move and it'll never happen again. I swear if as long as I share all my contacts with my partner, I'll never be tempted again. It's making these kind of little bargain shifts. If God helps me never get caught with this again, then I'll never let it happen again. It's anything you do to try and bargain a different result than the one that you see happening in front of your eyes. Next is the depression. The depression, like the anger, can last a long time. When couples get back together, nobody ever says they get back together and live happily ever after. Depression is a constant component within many of these couples. And the depression is real. It's overwhelming. It's a sadness. You lost everything you believed in. You lost the person you believed in. You lost the future you believed in. You lost whatever you thought the two of you meant, whatever you stood by, a very real part of your sacred vows. And depression is all about loss. And you're going to feel that. Once again, this is part of the reason we really want you to go to therapy if there's been cheating, affairs, betrayal in your relationship. And the last of these is acceptance. Acceptance is when you finally have gotten to the point where you go, this is real. It's not a dream. I'm not going to wake up for it. My partner betrayed me, or I betrayed my partner. I'm flawed, or my partner is flawed in this. Their character is weak. Now what we have to do is we have to try and salvage this marriage. We have to put boundaries in place that are going to help us salvage the marriage and prevent this from happening in the future. You'll see a lot written about post-traumatic stress after this type of an incident, a betrayal. Do I, as a therapist, believe it's true? Absolutely, I do. I don't believe it happens to every couple who has been through a divorce or an affair or cheating or a betrayal of some type, but I absolutely have seen it in my practice and I know it's real. Now, what happens with PTSD is it's lingering and it goes on. And you will not be able to get through PTSD without a therapist. So let's say the two of you worked it out with your pastor and you're now together, but PTSD is still rearing its head in your relationship. Now you have to really get professional counseling. And it may not just be for the two of you. The person who is feeling this, going through this, may need a separate therapist to address these. The first of these, you have recurrent intrusive visualizations. You start seeing your partner having sex or being with this other person. And it happens all the time. It happens when you're relaxed, happens when you're sleeping, happens when you're awake, happens when you're at the park with the kids. If you start having this, this is an indicator. Secondly, you start having like up and down moods, confusion, irritability, outbursts. Outbursts are a true red flag. If you have outbursts in your healing with the grief from an affair, it's important then that you talk to a therapist, because that won't get easier. The outbursts get worse and they'll start messing with you at work, at home, and when you're with the children or doing a fun family activity. Intense emotions of anger, hurt, shame, grief, frustration. And these will usually be blamed or pointed toward you. You'll start feeling frustrated, a lot of shame that I can't believe I'm with someone who did this. You know, my friends and my parents would have never allowed this. What does that say about me? Am I desperate? Why am I staying with this person? Have they really changed? Are they going to give a bad influence on my children? Are my children going to be forced to go through this with their partner? These kinds of thoughts are going to come, and they're frequent. Once in a while, everybody gets some of these, but if they're frequent, that's a sign of PTSD. Hypervigilance and startling. You hear something, your partner comes up behind you, and you're off in another world, and you're startled. Anytime you start having that, that's when you're getting more into PTSD symptoms. Maybe detachment, seclusion. You don't want to be around the friends you used to be. You don't feel like you fit in. These people are different than you now. You're not that same person you were before you found out your partner was cheating and hurt you so badly. You may lack focus, and you may not enjoy the things you used to enjoy. So you can see how the depression component of this is getting worse. And lastly, there's a hopelessness about the future. If you start getting any of these frequently, don't shame yourself and don't blame yourself. Talk to a mental health professional. It can be part of a betrayal, of cheating, of any kind of an affair, and I want you to take care of it. There's no sense in you suffering because of a choice your partner made, and it was a poor choice. And therefore, I say, help yourself get stronger and then work on the relationship if that's something that is going to be good for you and your children going forward.